Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Sukkah. We are up to Perek Bet Mishnah Het. Today's Mishnayot should be Le'irun Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Aranbayev, and Eliyahu ben Burchai Israelov, Menuchatam Began Eden, Amen, and Avdil ben Chaim L'Chaim for the Refuah Shelema of Bracha Bat Esther, Tinok ben Sarah, and Sarah Bat Shoshana, Betoch Shah Cholei Israel. The Mishnah begins, Nashim, Va'avadim, Uktanim, Piturim min Sukkah. Women cannot eat slaves, and minors are exempt from the obligation of dwelling in the sukkah. The Mishnah clarifies its ruling about minors. Katan sheno tzarich leimo chayav b'sukkah. However, a minor who does not need his mother is obligated to dwell in the sukkah because he is old enough to be trained to fulfill the mitzvah. Once a child is mature enough to perform a particular mitzvah, his father is rabbinically obligated to have him do the mitzvah. This is the obligation of chinuch training. Now, the level of required maturity varies from one mitzvah to another. With regard to the mitzvah of sukkah, a child must be old enough not to need his mother, meaning the child is sufficiently mature that when he wakes up, he does not call for his mother repeatedly until she comes. Rather, he calls and then waits quietly for her. Only a child of this age needs to be trained to dwell in the sukkah because a younger child could not sleep there without his mother. The Mishnah cites an incident in which a Tana arranged for an even younger child to dwell in a sukkah. Ma'aseh v'yalda kalato shel Shammai HaZaken. It happened that the daughter-in-law of Shammai the elder gave birth to a son. Ufichet et ha'ma'aziva. And he removed the plaster from the roof over her bed. V'sikech al gabei mita b'shvil ha'katan. And put schach above the bed for the child so that he would be in a sukkah. Now Shammai the elder replaced the plaster in the roof, which is unfit for schach, with valid schach materials, creating a sukkah over and around the bed in which the newborn was sleeping. According to Shammai the elder, the obligation of training applies even in the case of a child who is not aware of it. As soon as he becomes capable of performing the mitzvah, which in the case of sukkah requires only sleeping and eating, we must arrange for him to do so. That is in Rabotai of Mishnah Chet. The Rav does point out to us that the halacha follows the Tana Kama that a minor who does not need his mother is obligated to dwell in the sukkah, meaning he doesn't call out his mother repeatedly when he wakes up. He calls out once and waits for her to come. That is the opinion of the Rav regarding what is the halacha. We begin now Mishnah Tet. Kol shivat hayamim adam oseh sukkato keva ubeto arai. During all the 7 days of Sukkot, a person should make his sukkah his permanent residence and his house his temporary residence, meaning he should eat, sleep, and relax in the sukkah, and one who owns beautiful utensils and linen should bring them to the sukkah, as the Gemara says on page 28b in Masechet Sukkah. Now the Torah obligates us to live in the sukkah during the festival of Sukkot in the same way that we live in our houses the rest of the year. If it rains, one is exempt from the mitzvah. This too is derived from the Torah's requirement that our dwelling in the sukkah resemble our dwelling in the house. If rain was leaking into someone's house, he would leave and eat and sleep elsewhere. Now the Mishnah defines how hard it must rain for the exemption to apply. Yardu geshamim matay mutar lefanot. If rain was falling, when does it become permitted to remove his utensils and leave the sukkah? Mishetisrach amikpa. The Mishnah says when it rains hard enough that a porridge made of split beans would be ruined. Now, porridge is easily ruined by rain, and a porridge of split beans is ruined even more easily than other kinds of porridge. If enough rain is falling in the sukkah to ruin split bean porridge, even a person who is not actually eating this dish is exempt from the mitzvah, since it is distressing to eat any food under such conditions. Now, the Mishnah teaches that being forced out of the sukkah by rain is a sign of God's displeasure. Mashlu mashal. The sages describe this with a parable. Lema davar domet. To what can the matter be compared? Le'eved sheba limzok kos lerabo. To a servant who came with a pitcher of water to mix a cup of wine for his master. In those times, wine was too strong to be drunk plain, had to be mixed with water. V'shafach lo kiton al panav. But the master poured the pitcher in the servant's face, showing that he does not want the servant to serve him. Similarly, when Hashem brings rain at Sukkot and forces us to leave the Sukkah, he shows that he is not pleased with our service. Therefore, if it rains in the Sukkah, it would be wrong for us to stay there. Rather, we must leave immediately, since God has shown that he is not pleased with our mitzvah. And that is in Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.